Okay, let's unpack this. How often do you stop and really think about the ground you're standing on? Or driving on, maybe having a picnic on?
Especially the grassy parts, right?
Exactly. We just, take it for granted. But as our cities get denser and environmental concerns, well, they keep growing. That simple patch of green, it's actually going through a pretty high-tech transformation, quietly.
It really is. And today we're doing a deep dive into grass reinforcement.
Yeah.
It's a market that's becoming, well, kind of vital for bridging that gap between needing functional spaces and, wanting green environments.
Right. We've been digging into the research from cognitive market research, and our mission here in this deep dive is really to pull out the key stuff. What's making this market grow? What are the challenges holding it back?
And where's the innovation? What's shaping the future?
Yeah. It's this surprising mix of civil engineering, environmental policy, and even just how we want things to look. Landscaping aesthetics.
It's fascinating stuff.
So let's kick off with what's pushing this market forward. What did cognitive market research find were the main drivers?
Well, what's really interesting is how several big global pressures are sort of converging here. The first huge one is just the scale of urbanization, infrastructure development happening, everywhere.
Cities expanding like crazy.
Right. And that means a constant need for new surfaces. Think new roads, parking lots, access routes for emergencies, public parks.
And you can't just pave everything over. We still want and need those green bits.
Precisely. So these new areas, or even upgraded old ones, they demand solutions that aren't just tough, but also work with the environment.
Like those emergency roads through parks you mentioned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or maybe overflow parking that needs to look like a lawn most of the year. These areas have got to handle heavy loads sometimes, or lots of foot traffic, without just turning into mud bowls, especially when space is tight.
Okay, so grass reinforcement comes in and gives you that balance. You get the strength for vehicles or feet, but you keep the green look and the surface stays permeable. It's function and form, really.
Couldn't have put it better. It stops the soil getting compacted, cuts down on erosion, and crucially keeps those surfaces permeable, which actually ties straight into the second big driver.
Ah, the environmental regulations. Knew they'd be in here.
Absolutely. With everyone, increasingly worried about climate change, urban runoff, all that, governments everywhere are tightening the rules. There's a real push for eco-friendly building methods and particularly sustainable open drainage systems. You hear them called SUDES.
Right, SUDES. That's all about handling rainwater more naturally, letting it soak in.
That's the core idea. And grass reinforcement systems, they fit perfectly with that. By keeping the ground porous, they let rainwater infiltrate, sink in, instead of just rushing off into storm drains.
Which causes its own problems.
Big problems. So the benefits highlighted in the research are pretty significant. Less stormwater runoff, better filtering of pollutants, improved water quality overall, and helping recharge groundwater.
So being permeable makes them a really attractive option for projects trying to be greener.
Definitely. Often a preferred choice, actually, especially when meeting those regulations. It's not just looking green, it's functionally green when it comes to water.
Gotcha. Okay, what's driver number 3?
This one's maybe a bit more visceral. It's the demand for just nice-looking functional landscaping.
Yeah.
People want green spaces that look good, that feel inviting.
Like, I want my driveway to sort of blend into the lawn, but still be, a driveway.
Exactly that. Or a business wanting green areas that customers can walk on, maybe even drive on for special events without wrecking the place.
Yeah.
The desire for visually appealing landscapes is strong, but they have to be practical too. So reinforcement lets you create these dual-purpose spaces. Green, nice to look at, but tough enough to handle use without looking worn out. It gives designers more freedom.
Okay, so we've got urbanization pushing it, environmental rules demanding it, and just plain aesthetics wanting it. That sounds like a strong tailwind. But it can't be all easy, right? What are the hurdles, the restraints?
No, definitely not smooth sailing all the way. Cognitive market research points to two main restraints that, project planners really have to think about. The first one, high initial costs. It often comes up first.
Yeah, I can see that. Compared to just slapping down some asphalt or throwing down gravel, putting in a proper reinforcement system, it sounds like it costs more upfront.
It definitely can, yeah.
Oh.
And that can be a real barrier, especially if the budget's tight. Might push people towards those older, maybe less sustainable options just to save cash initially.
But there's usually a but.
There is. And the source makes a really crucial point here.
Hmm.
So you got to look at the life cycle costs, not just day one. Okay, installation might be pricier, but think long term. Less maintenance, maybe, compared to fixing potholes or constantly reseeding a beat-up lawn, plus those environmental benefits we talked about. Over the whole life of the thing, it can actually save significant money.
Right, right. Invest more now for savings and benefits later. Makes sense. What's the other main restraint?
It's about looking after it. Maintenance requirements. Now, these systems are durable, definitely, but they're not like zero maintenance.
Ah, it's still grass, after all. Living stuff.
Exactly. You can't just install it and walk away forever. To keep them working well, keep the grass healthy, keep the whole system doing its job long term, they do need some regular upkeep.
Like what sort of things?
The research mentions, basics like proper watering, especially when it's new or during dry spells, maybe occasional reseeding in high-wear spots to keep the cover dense, making sure any drainage bits stay clear.
Okay.
Now, it's generally less work than trying to keep a normal lawn looking good under heavy traffic, but it's a factor, something you need to plan for, budget for.
So upfront cost and ongoing, maybe lower, but still necessary, maintenance. Those are the things to watch. Okay, now, the really exciting part. Where's this market going? What are the cool innovations coming down the pipe?
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting. Cognitive market research highlights two key trends. They paint a picture of a future for grass reinforcement that's, greener and smarter.
Green and smart. Okay, tell me about the green part first. Is that just more grass or something else?
No, it's about the materials that actually support the grass. There's a huge focus on innovation in materials.
The plastic grids and things.
Exactly. The meshes, the grids, sometimes they look like pavers with holes. Manufacturers are increasingly trying to make these using recycled materials or even biodegradable ones.
Oh, okay. So taking plastic waste out of landfills, using less new plastic, that sounds good.
It is good. It lines up perfectly with all the global sustainability goals. We're seeing grids made from like 100% recycled plastic that people have already used. There's even research into using natural fibers that could break down over time. And the challenge, of course, is making these eco-materials still strong enough. They have to bear the load, keep things stable, but be better for the planet when they're made and when they eventually reach their end of life. It's some clever material science.
That's a fantastic trend, making the hidden structure sustainable, too. Okay, what about the smart side? How does grass get smart?
Right. This is where it gets really cool, I think. It's about integration with smart landscaping tech.
Yeah.
Imagine a reinforced grassy area that kind of knows what it needs and can almost ask for it.
Like the grass sending you a text saying it's thirsty?
Well, sort of, yeah. It means putting sensors and monitoring systems in or alongside the reinforcement.
Okay.
So you could have sensors checking soil moisture levels constantly, systems that pull in local weather forecasts, maybe even platforms that track usage, like which part of this reinforced parking area gets the most cars driving over it.
How does knowing all that help the grass?
It allows for super efficient management, like smart irrigation systems that only water when and where it's actually needed, based on that real-time soil data and the forecast. Saves a ton of water.
Okay. Targeted watering.
Exactly. And if you monitor the usage, you might spot areas getting stressed before the grass starts looking bad. Then you can do targeted maintenance, like aerating just that spot or reseeding. It just makes the whole thing more effective. Keeps the grass healthy, looking good with less guesswork. And it optimizes resources like water and maybe even fertilizer. It tackles some of those maintenance worries we talked about earlier, but with tech.
Wow. So it stops being just a static, structural thing and becomes more of a dynamic, managed ecosystem.
That's a great way to put it. Using data, using connectivity to make sure that reinforced grass performs its best and lasts as long as possible. It really strengthens that long-term value idea.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. Looking at the insights from cognitive market research, this whole grass reinforcement market, it's definitely growing quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, pushed hard by, cities getting bigger, needing green infrastructure, partly because of those environmental rules.
Right, and also just because we like having functional green spaces around us, aesthetics matter.
They do.
Yeah.
And yeah, while that initial cost needs thinking about, and you do have to do some maintenance, the way innovation is heading, especially with these sustainable materials and the smart tech integration, it really points towards a future where these green surfaces are just going to get tougher, more eco-friendly, and way more intelligently managed.
So what does this deep dive really mean for you listening? Well, next time you walk across a park path that just doesn't seem to get muddy, or maybe park your car on a surprisingly green lot.
Or even just notice how water seems to soak away nicely in a public square.
Yeah. Think about the tech that might be working away, unseen, under your feet. How could these systems be subtly changing your everyday environment, making it greener, maybe more resilient, just better able to handle modern life?
And here's something to mull over. As we keep building more, building denser, and as climate change keeps throwing challenges at us, how might these ways of reinforcing the actual ground change how we design green spaces, how we interact with them in our packed towns and cities? Could it be more fundamental than we think? Okay, welcome to a deep dive. Get ready to explore a market you might not have ever thought about, but trust us, the numbers are telling a really compelling story.
Definitely.
We're diving into the global grass reinforcement market today.
Right. And if that sounds a bit, well, abstract,
Mhm.
think about those grassy parking lots you sometimes see.
Exactly.
Mm.
Or maybe emergency access roads that need to be strong but still let water through, that kind of thing.
It's that intersection of needing a durable surface, but also wanting the look and the environmental pluses of actual grass.
And we're digging into this based on a detailed market analysis report.
Hmm.
The core data we're using comes from cognitive market research.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission here is to pull out the key figures, the big projections, see where things vary by region.
And really understand what this source suggests is driving the significant growth to be seeing. What insights are hiding in these numbers?
Precisely. Going beyond just the top-line figure to grasp the dynamics of what seems like a surprisingly vibrant sector.
Okay, let's do it.
So let's kick off with the global picture, according to the source. Back in 2021, the whole market was valued at just over $612 million.
Right, $612.788 million to be exact. That's our baseline.
But where it gets really interesting is the future projection.
Yeah, this report forecasts that by 2033, we're looking at a market worth over $1.7 billion.
Wow, okay. That's nearly triple the value in about 12 years.
It is. And that growth path is captured by the overall compound annual growth rate, the CAGR. The source puts that at 9% globally for that period.
A 9% CAGR for something like grass reinforcement.
Yeah.
That's not small potatoes. It really suggests significant demand building up.
Absolutely. It points to real expansion.
And they show it's a steady climb, too, right? There's an intermediate projection for 2025, around $865 million.
That's right. So it suggests consistent, strong upward momentum, not just some wild guess about the future.
That steady growth really does underline, the market's stability and maybe its increasing importance. Okay, so let's start breaking this down by region, because that's where you see some, fascinating differences. North America first.
Sounds good. North America. The source puts its 2021 value at just over $221 million, $221.829 million.
Okay, and looking forward.
Projected to grow to over $563 million by 2033. That comes out to a regional CAGR of just over 8%, so solid, steady growth there.
And within North America, the report breaks down the countries. The U.S. is the biggest chunk, value-wise.
Right. $171.9 million in 2021, heading towards $420 million. Its CAGR is around 7.7%.
But Canada's growth rate is actually a bit higher.
It is, yeah. Canada's projected CAGR is over 9.3%. Mexico is also strong, around 8.9%.
Interesting. So even within one region, you see these different growth speeds. Canada pacing a bit faster there.
Exactly.
Okay, let's hop across the Atlantic. Europe, what did the source say for 2021?
Europe was at just over $170 million in 2021, $170.355 million.
And the projection for 2033?
Looking at over $456 million. The regional CGR here is slightly higher than North America's, actually around 8.5%.
And the country breakdown in Europe seems quite varied.
It really is. The source details quite a few. What jumps out is the UK. Its projected CGR is almost 10%, 9.88%.
Wow, that's the highest in Europe, according to this report.
That's what the numbers suggest, yeah. Highest growth rate. Now, Germany has the largest market value overall.
Okay.
Around $36.8 million in 2021, projected to hit $108 million. But its CGR is a bit lower, around 9.4%. It's still very strong, though.
And then you have others like France, Italy.
Right. France around 8.7% CGR. Italy just over 9%. Pretty solid growth.
But some others are lower. Russia, Scandinavia.
Yeah. Russia's projected CGR is closer to 7.4%. Sweden's around 7.9%. Denmark about 7%. And then Luxembourg is listed with the lowest in the region, around 6.6%. Switzerland around 6.7%.
So quite a spread across Europe. While the overall trend is definitely growth, the specific pace or maybe adoption rate seems to differ quite a bit country by country.
That's a good way to put it. The drivers might vary.
Okay, let's shift now to Asia Pacific. The source calls this region out for explosive growth. Does that hold up in the numbers?
Oh, it absolutely does. The 2021 value was just over $130 million. $130.524 million.
And the growth projection.
This region leads globally in terms of the projected growth rate. The regional CAGR is over 10.4%. That takes the market value towards $434 million by 2033.
Okay, over 10%. And who are the key players there? China's big, I assume.
China's definitely a major player, yeah. $50.9 million in 2021, projected to hit $171.5 million, with a CGR right around that regional average, 10.5%.
But the real standout figure mentioned is India.
India is the one that really catches your eye. Starting smaller, around $16 million in 2021, but projected to reach nearly $68 million by 2033. That implies a CAGR, get this, 12.6%.
12.6%. And the source specifically calls that out as the highest globally.
That's what it says. Highest individual country CAGR in the report.
That figure for India is, well, it's pretty remarkable. The source talks about infrastructure, sustainability, innovation transforming the market overall, right? And while it doesn't, draw a direct line just for India, you can't help but think maybe massive infrastructure projects or pressing sustainability needs in such a fast-growing economy. Could that be fueling that kind of, explosive demand?
It certainly makes you wonder. It seems plausible that those kinds of pressures could drive adoption of these solutions very rapidly.
What about other countries in APAC?
Still strong growth. Australia is another standout, actually, with a projected CAGR over 11.7%.
Wow, also very high.
Yeah. And then you have South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, all showing solid growth CAGRs around the 9.6% to 9.7% mark. Southeast Asia as a block around 9.6%. Singapore 9.1%. It's clear this region is a major engine for the market's future.
Okay, let's head south now. South America. What's the picture there?
South America. The source reported its 2021 market value at just over $39 million. $39.218 million.
And the future.
Projected to hit over $115 million by 2033. The regional CAGR is strong again, over 9.4%.
Any specific countries highlighted?
Brazil is significant. Projected CGR near 9.9%. And Argentina actually shows a slightly higher CAGR, just over 10% according to the report's figures.
Over 10% in Argentina, too.
Okay.
And others.
Colombia, Peru, Chile are all listed with solid CAGRs, too, mostly in the 8.5% to 9.2% range. So yeah, another region showing pretty robust growth overall.
Right. Next up, the Middle East.
Middle East. Market value just over $29 million in 2021, $29.414 million.
And the projection.
Growing to over $79 million by 2033. The regional CGR is listed at over 8.7%.
And within the region.
The report highlights Saudi Arabia, solid growth around 9% CGR, but the UAE actually shows a higher rate again, just over 10%.
Another one over 10%. Interesting.
It is. But then interestingly, the source lists Qatar and the rest of Middle East category with notably lower KGRs, closer to the 6.6% to 6.9% range.
So, like Europe, some significant variation within the region itself, not uniform growth.
Exactly. Different adoption rates or priorities, perhaps.
Okay, last region, Africa. What did the source share for 2021?
Africa started from the smallest base value in 2021, just over $21 million. $21.448 million.
But the growth rate?
Very high. The report notes Africa as having one of the highest regional cost share globally, over 11%. That projects a market value of over $74 million by 2033.
Over 11% regional CAGR. Wow.
Yeah.
And is there a standout country there, like India and APAC?
Yes, Nigeria, similar story. The source lists its projected CGR at over 11.7%.
Okay, 11.7%. That makes it the second highest globally in this report, after India.
That's what the figures indicate, yes, just behind India. South Africa also shows strong projected growth, over 10.3% CGR, and the rest of Africa category is also high, over 11.3%.
So if we're connecting the dots on regional growth, Africa, based on these numbers, shows incredible potential, really rapid expansion projected, second only to Asia Pacific for the overall regional CGR.
Exactly. And again, thinking about what the source mentions infrastructure needs, it makes you wonder how much development investment across parts of Africa might be fueling demand for these kinds of ground reinforcement solutions.
Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. What's the big picture takeaway from this deep dive into the source's numbers on the global grass reinforcement market?
Well, we're looking at a market projected to basically triple in value between 2021 and 2033. A healthy global CAGR of 9%.
But that growth isn't spread evenly, right? It's really led regionally by Asia Pacific and Africa. both showing these double-digit projected regional KGRs.
Yeah, and within those regions, you have specific countries like India and Nigeria showing truly, well, explosive projected growth rates, according to this report, over 12% and nearly 12% respectively.
Meanwhile, the more established markets, North America and Europe, they show steady, solid growth.
And South America and the Middle East are also contributing significantly, with some high growth spots like Argentina and the UAE.
And the source connects us all back to broader trends: infrastructure development, sustainability goals, innovation.
Right. And when you look at these numbers, especially the really high growth in developing economies like India, Nigeria, Australia, Argentina, and you think about the global push for, say, sustainable urban development or maybe more resilient infrastructure.
You start to see how those big trends could directly translate into demand for these specific grass reinforcement products.
Right.
It's not just keeping a sports field looking nice anymore.
Exactly. It's about functional, sustainable ground solutions. Green parking, maybe erosion control on slopes, reinforced emergency access routes that still allow water drainage. That infrastructure and sustainability angle starts to make sense with these kinds of growth projections.
This deep dive really peels back the layers on a maybe overlooked but clearly dynamic and growing market, hidden in plain sight almost.
It really shows how even in these specialized areas, significant shifts are happening, likely driven by those larger global forces.
Okay, thanks for exploring this with us.
And maybe we can leave you with a final thought to consider, sticking just to what our source highlighted, that connection between grass reinforcement and infrastructure, sustainability, and innovation.
Yeah.
How might paying attention to these specific, maybe niche markets like this one actually reveal broader, perhaps surprising patterns about global economic development or maybe environmental priorities that you might otherwise miss if you only look at the big headlines?
What other specialized industries out there could be having their own sort of quiet but explosive growth story?
Something to think about.